Picture this. It's January 3rd, 1961, 9 o'clock at night. The Idaho desert is frozen solid. Temperature, 20 below zero. Wind howling across miles of absolute nothing. And in that nothing, there's a building. Concrete, steel, anonymous. No signs, no markers, nothing to tell you what's inside. 3 men walk through that door. Young men, soldiers, American soldiers. They're laughing, joking. It's routine maintenance. They've done it 100 times before. In exactly 4 minutes, all 3 of them will be dead. One will be impaled to the ceiling by a control rod driven through his groin and out his shoulder. Another will be thrown 20 feet across the room, his skull shattered against concrete. The third will survive the explosion, only to die hours later, his body so radioactive that nurses can't get within 6 feet without their dosimeters screaming. This is the story you've never heard. The night the atom killed its own. And I'm going to tell you exactly what happened in that room. The machine that wasn't supposed to exist. Let me ask you something. Have you ever heard of the SL-1 reactor? No? That's exactly the point. See, in 1954, America had a secret problem. And I mean secret. The kind of problem that keeps generals up at night. The kind that demands solutions nobody can know about. The Cold War wasn't just about missiles and spies. It was about geography, about the Arctic, about the vast frozen wasteland between us and them. The U.S. military was building radar stations across the top of the world. The Dew Line, distant early warning. Dozens of remote bases scattered across Alaska, Canada, Greenland, the northern frontier. These bases were America's eyes, our first line of defense against Soviet bombers. But here's the thing nobody talks about. How do you power a military base in the middle of the Arctic? 300 miles from the nearest city, in darkness for half the year, where supply convoys can't reach you for months. Diesel generators? Sure. But you know what diesel needs? Fuel. Constant fuel. Imagine the logistics, the cost, the vulnerability. Let me ask you something. Have you ever heard of the SL-1 reactor? No? That's the point. 1954. America had a secret problem. How do you power military bases in the Arctic? 300 miles from civilization? Where supply convoys can't reach you for months? The Pentagon had an idea, a dangerous idea. Portable nuclear reactors, infinite power, no supply lines. The SL-1 project was born, built in Idaho's desolate desert, the perfect place to hide a secret. August 1958. The reactor goes online, 40 feet tall, 3 megawatts of power, operated by regular enlisted men, not scientists, soldiers, kids in their 20s. For 3 years, it worked perfectly, until January 3rd, 1961. The night 3 of them walked in for routine maintenance. Let me tell you about those 3 men. The men who walked into hell. Richard Legg, 26 years old, married. His wife was pregnant. John Byrnes, 27, father, careful, by the book. Richard McKinley, 22, newly married, Navy electrician. This was his first time inside the SL-1. 3 men, real men, with families waiting. They walked in expecting routine maintenance. The reactor was offline. Safe. But one control rod was stuck. The 4 minutes, 9:01 p.m., inside the reactor vessel, cramped, dim. They're working on the central control rod. Control rods keep the atom tame. Pull them out. The reaction speeds up. Pull them out too far. Critical. They need to lift it 4 inches. They pull. It's stuck. They pull harder. 9:01 and 4 seconds. The rod breaks free. 20 inches in 1 second. The reactor goes prompt critical. 4 milliseconds. Shut down to 40 million watts. The water flashes to steam. The reactor vessel, 40,000 pounds of steel, becomes a missile. Shoots upward. Punches through the ceiling. Smashes back down. The control rod becomes a spear through his body, pinning him to the ceiling. John Byrnes is thrown 20 feet, skull shattered against concrete. Richard McKinley blown backward, burned, irradiated. Then, silence. except the radiation alarm. Beeping. The impossible rescue. 9:17 p.m. First responders arrive. A security guard approaches with a Geiger counter. 50 feet away, it starts screaming. Off the scale. The building is a death trap. Lethal radiation. Walk in there, you're dead. But inside, 3 men. Maybe alive. The supervisor orders everyone back. For 90 minutes, nobody enters. Can you imagine? 10:35 p.m. Rescue team enters. Protective suits. Dosimeters screaming immediately. They find Richard McKinley. Face down, no pulse. His body emits so much radiation their meters click like machine guns from 6 feet away. They find John Byrnes. On the floor. Unconscious. But breathing. They carry him out. He regains consciousness in the ambulance. Whispers, "What happened?" Then passes out. His body absorbed over 500 rem of radiation. Lethal dose? He dies at 1:15 a.m. But Richard Legg is still inside. The body on the ceiling. The team goes back in. They look up. Richard Legg, 40 feet above the floor, pinned to the ceiling by the control rod. Dead since the first second. Pull him down. They work in 90-second shifts. Cut. Retreat. Return. 6 hours to recover his body. When they bring him down, his hands are too radioactive to touch. So they amputate them. Right there. Seal them in lead. Richard Legg's hands were buried separately. Too dangerous to be with him. Think about that. A man so contaminated that parts of his body had to be buried separately. The cover-up. By morning, the story breaks. 3 dead in Idaho reactor accident. Headlines everywhere, but the details, classified. The site is locked down. Official story. Accidental steam explosion. Investigation ongoing. But behind the scenes, dark rumors. Why was that control rod pulled out so far? 4 inches is normal. 20 inches? Intentional. Investigators found whispers of a love triangle, but no proof. The truth? We'll never know. Investigation files classified until 2011. 50 years. The reactor was entombed, buried under concrete. The 3 men? Lead-lined coffins, too contaminated for normal burial. Chapter 7. The legacy written in radiation. Stand with me in Idaho today. The site still exists. A marker, a plaque. Radioactive material. Do not disturb. Still dangerous. For 300 more years. The 3 men entombed forever with the machine that killed them. But their deaths changed everything. Today, every nuclear reactor has safety interlocks, physical limits, multiple protections, because 3 men died in 4 milliseconds. The SL-1 was the only fatal reactor accident in U.S. history where the crew died instantly, and most Americans have never heard of it. Why? The story was buried, classified, hidden. January 3rd, 1961. 9:00 p.m. Richard Legg kisses his pregnant wife goodbye. John Byrnes looks forward to going home. Richard McKinley is excited, serving his country. 61 minutes later, all 3 are dead. No warning, no chance. They were technicians doing routine maintenance on a machine that was supposed to be safe. Their country let them die. Then buried the story. Richard Legg's daughter was born 3 months later. He never held her. John Byrnes's wife got a telegram. Your husband died in a reactor accident. That's all. Richard McKinley, 22 years old, married 8 months. Their names deserve to be remembered, not because they were heroes, but because they were victims of America's atomic ambition. The SL-1 disaster is a reminder that power always comes with a cost. 3 men walked into a reactor in the frozen Idaho desert. They never walked out, but their story survives. Because sometimes, America's greatest power came at the cost of its own.